In a limestone quarry in the north of South Africa lies the skull of a child who was about 3 years old. The bone is roughly 2 million years old. It belonged to a small upright creature, one of the earliest members of the human family, and it has damage on it that took decades to read correctly. There are punctures in the brain case, there are flaps of crushed bone on top, there are keyhole-shaped cuts in the side, and inside the eye sockets there are ragged scratches and gouges. Those last marks are the ones that settle it. Large eagles that hunt monkeys today leave exactly that pattern, because after killing an animal, they hold the skull down and use the beak and talons to take the eyes and get at what is behind them. A bird killed that child, carried the body to a perch and ate it there. This is the part of prehistory that gets left out. For most of the human story, people were not the top of anything. They were mid-sized, slow, soft-skinned animals with no claws, no armour, no speed, and no useful teeth, living in the open among the most effective predators the continent has ever produced. An adult stood between 4 and 5 feet tall and weighed less than a modern teenager. It could not outrun anything that wanted to eat it over a short distance. It could not fight. Its only real advantages were a set of eyes on the front of a head held high enough to see over grass, a body that could keep walking long after other animals had to stop, and other members of its own kind standing nearby. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our future documentaries. Thank you for your support. Now let's continue. Look at what shared that landscape. There were leopards, then as now, ambushing from cover and hauling kills up into trees to eat them where nothing else could reach. There were saber-toothed cats of several kinds, some built like a lion, some built lower and heavier, with canines long enough to reach a windpipe through the neck muscles of a large animal. There were hyenas the size of a small lion, with jaws that break the leg bones of a buffalo, hunting in packs across open ground. There were crocodiles in every river and lakeshore worth drinking from, and some of them were bigger than any crocodile alive today, and there were eagles. The evidence for what those animals did to people is not a matter of guesswork. It is written on the bones. In a cave in the same part of South Africa, excavators recovered the top of a skull from a young member of another early human species. 2 neat holes are punched through the back of it, side by side. In the same deposit, they found the lower jaw of a leopard, and the canines of that jaw fit the holes exactly. The animal had taken the head in its mouth, the way a leopard carries a carcass, and dragged the body somewhere it could feed in peace. That detail explains something uncomfortable about the fossil record. A great many of the earliest human remains ever found came out of caves and rock fissures in southern Africa. They are there because predators put them there. Those caves were not homes, they were larders. For a long stretch of the human story, the reason our ancestors survive as fossils at all is that something ate them somewhere, the bones could not be scattered. So what did daily life look like under that pressure? It looked like never being alone. Groups moved together, and moving away from the group for any distance was close to suicidal. A single individual on open ground is a straightforward meal. 20 individuals making noise, spread out, watching in different directions, is a problem most predators decline. It looked like watching the ground. Fresh tracks, fresh droppings, the direction vultures were circling, the alarm calls of birds and monkeys, all of it read constantly. Every animal on that landscape listens to every other animal, and a troop of monkeys shrieking in a particular way means a cat is moving below them. People who could not read those signals did not last. It looked like avoiding water. Rivers and waterholes are where every animal has to go, which makes them the most dangerous ground in the world. Crocodiles wait there. Cats know exactly where the drinking happens. Bones from one lakeside site carry the tooth marks of a very large crocodile on a human ancestor. Drinking was done fast in numbers, with people facing outward. It looked like avoiding the edges of the day. Cats hunt in the low light of dawn and dusk and through the night. That leaves the middle of the day, which is brutally hot and exactly when the big predators are lying up in shade. Being active in the heat is not an accident of human biology. A body that sweats across bare skin, cools itself efficiently, and can walk for hours in full sun, is a body that has been pushed into the one part of the day the killers do not want. And it looked like carrying the children. The child in that quarry was taken because a small body is the easy target, and a group with young in it is a group that gets tested. Small children were carried, kept in the middle, and never left at the edge of anything. It is worth being clear about how often this happened. In monkey populations living today alongside leopards and eagles, Predators take a noticeable share of the group every year, and the young take the worst of it. There is no reason the early human line was doing better. Over a lifetime, most people would have seen members of their own group killed and carried off, and many groups would have lost children. Often there was no body afterward. A leopard hauls a kill into a tree and eats it over 2 or 3 days, 20 feet up, out of reach. A hyena clan takes a body apart and scatters it across a mile of ground. What the group had was an absence, a set of tracks, and blood in the grass. And then the group moved camp because a predator that has succeeded in a place comes back to it. The bones also record the ones who lived. Fossils turn up with healed fractures, with punctures that closed over, with bites that scarred and did not kill. Somebody survived those injuries lying still for weeks, unable to walk or gather, which means somebody else brought them food and water. The defences available were thin, and all of them were social. Throwing was one. Humans throw better than any other animal alive, hard and accurately, and a hail of fist-sized stones from 20 people will move a hyena off a carcass and will make a leopard reconsider. Noise was another. Shouting, banging, and a wall of upright bodies advancing together goes against everything a predator expects from prey. Height was a third. Standing upright makes a small animal look bigger, and a group of upright figures on open ground reads to a cat as something unfamiliar and difficult to size up. Those same tactics got used going the other direction, at the carcass. For a long stretch, meat came from animals other predators had already killed, which meant walking toward a kill rather than away from it. The signal was vultures dropping out of the sky in a spiral, visible for miles. Whoever got there first had to take the carcass off whatever was on it, usually hyenas, and hold the spot long enough to cut something loose. That is a fight decided by numbers and nerve, not strength. People came in a group, spread wide, shouting and throwing stones, and hyenas that will not back down from a lion will back off from that. And what was left after a big cat had fed was rarely the good meat. It was the head and the lower legs, which is why the oldest butchery marks on animal bone cluster there, and why the tool that mattered so much was a stone for cracking a thigh bone open. The marrow inside a leg bone is the one rich food no other scavenger on that landscape could reach, because nothing else could break the bone. That was the opening, and it was taken under constant threat of being killed at the carcass. Then came fire, and the balance shifted for the first time. Fire holds a perimeter all night. It also does something no stone can do, which is to let people see in the dark, which had always belonged to the animals hunting them. Even so, the caves were shared. In Europe, the same caves people sheltered in were used by cave bears to hibernate, by cave hyenas to den and to drag in carcasses, and by cave lions that stood over 4 feet at the shoulder. The floors of some of those caves hold the bones of hundreds of bears that died in their sleep across thousands of winters. Groups moved into the mouth of a cave and never the depths, kept a fire at the entrance, and knew perfectly well what the deep chambers were full of. Occupation of a place like that was seasonal and negotiated. The bears came back in the fall, and people were gone by then. In more than one cave, layers of human occupation and layers of hyena denning alternate all the way down, one on top of the other, each group moving in as the other moved out. The turn when it came took a very long time. 350,000 years ago in what is now Spain, people were butchering a lion. Whether they killed it or found it dead is not clear from the bones, but they cut it up and used it. 190,000 years ago in what is now Germany, people took the pelt off a cave lion so carefully that they left the claws attached to the skin. That is not butchery for meat. A skin with the claws still in it is something to be worn or displayed. And 48,000 years ago, near a lake in southern Germany, a cave lion died with a wooden spear driven into its left side. The point went in through the abdomen, passed through the organs, and struck the third rib on the opposite side hard enough to crush a crater into the bone. The animal was old. It was probably approached while it was resting, and it was stabbed from close range with a thrusting spear, which means somebody walked up to a lion on purpose. Then they opened it, took out the organs without damaging the ribs, stripped the meat, and left the rest at the kill site. That single skeleton is the oldest direct evidence anywhere of a human hand killing a large predator. Nothing about that happened quickly. Between the child taken by an eagle and the lion killed with a spear lie roughly 2 million years, and for almost all of that time the relationship ran the other way. What it left behind is not only in the bones. it is in the way people still behave. The fear of the dark, the reflex to look up at a shadow crossing overhead, the instinct to freeze at a sound in the grass, the discomfort of sleeping alone in the open, the pull to sit with a fire at your back and your face toward the darkness. Every one of those responses was assembled over a very long stretch of time by animals that ate our ancestors, and it is in the art. When people finally began painting the walls of caves, the animals they drew most often, in the deepest chambers, with the most care, were the ones that could kill them. Lions in groups, hunting, bears, rhinos, hyenas. Those pictures were made by hand, in the dark, in caves that had belonged to the animals in them, by people carrying fire,